Paul, of course, is not saying that's the only thing he preaches. Because as we read his writings, he says a lot more than the cross. But what he really is saying is that when he was over there dealing with the intellectuals, the bright ones, he made it, what he felt was not the right move with them. He decided he was going to talk their language. He was going to be bright and intelligent and all of that with them. And he found out it didn't work. So, don't try to be like the people. They're already the people. Don't try to be like them. Be a Christian. Talk like Jesus. That's what they're not. That's what they need. And so he learned his lesson. And he came over here to Corinth. And mind you, he's talking to a church. A Christian church in Corinth. And they're terrible people. They're doing things, he said, that aren't even named among the heathen. And so he says, I'm not going to make the same mistake that I did over there. I'm going to talk to you about Christ and Him crucified. You people haven't even gotten past the cross. That's all I can talk to you about. You're carnal people. So we have to stay with the absolute basics. So let's not get confused and think that that's all Paul ever preached about. That's what he's talking about to these people. Okay? Now, of course, we need to know about the cross. That's what is higher than that. But we need to know that the gospel is more than the cross. So let's take a look and let's see what Paul says when he gets to the high things. Let's look at Romans 10:9. If thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shall believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. Now, that's more than the cross. He went right. Yes, he went right to the kernel of the real plan of salvation. Nothing happens without the cross, that's true. But nothing happens without the resurrection either. See? What good is a dead Jesus? Even after he lived a perfect life. That perfect life can't save us if he's dead. He goes to the cross. He can forgive us. But that's only half of the problem, and that's what people don't understand. That's only half of the problem, the fact that we sinned yesterday. 1 Corinthians 15. Some more Paul. Verse 14. If Christ be not risen, then is our preaching vain. No good. What good is our preaching? And your faith is also vain. Yea. And we are found false witnesses of God because we have testified of God that He raised up Christ, whom He raised not up, so if so be the dead don't rise. For if the dead rise not, then is Christ not raised. And if Christ be not raised, your faith is vain. You are yet in your sins. See? Now that's powerful preaching. That goes beyond the events of the cross to say how the cross has a value. The value is in the resurrection. Okay, so Paul says here, not I preach Christ only. He says, Christ crucified only. He says, I'm preaching that he was raised also. So we can't just stay with 2:2. We have to get over to 15. Now the cross, of course, who can say enough about the cross? That's where the sacrifice was made. That's where we see the character of God, the cross. We see complete, total, perfect unselfishness. We see humility. We see lowliness. Now, we're talking about God. That's not the God the heathen serve. The heathen always have to have this big, majestic, powerful, beat you up if you don't do it right God. That's not God. Not the real God. God is Jesus. Philip, have you been with me so long? You've seen me and you don't know? When you've seen me, you have seen the Father. Learn of me. I am meek and lowly of heart. That's God. None of us have ever approached to the character of God. He is meek and lowly. We've got a wrong idea about becoming like Jesus. We want to be big and powerful. We want to be mighty, and we want to tell that one do that, and that one do. We want the waves and the oceans to obey us. You don't get that until you're meek and lowly. So the cross is wonderful. It's beautiful to behold the realities. But there is no value to the cross if there's no resurrection. The cross becomes meaningless if God didn't raise Jesus. You know, without the resurrection, what we really have is just a human tragedy. Here's a fellow who preached and then he died, and that's it. Worthless. Or otherwise you might say, well, look at that beautiful life. He was our example. Well, what good is that? He's our example. We're not talking about another part of the doctrines of the gospel. We're talking about the center. Nothing happens without the resurrection. We're talking about the core of Christianity. And this is the way the apostles and the disciples dealt with it. Whenever they had to say the real thing, that's where they went. When Peter was talking before the leaders of the Jewish church, that's where he went. Jesus, whom you crucified, but the Father raised. Do you know who was listening to that? There was a fellow by the name of Caiaphas. He was a Sadducee. They do not believe in the resurrection. And that's who Peter said it to. Oh. All right. You know, we're looking at the resurrection, but in order to do that, you have to look at the grave first. We're standing outside of the grave. Men are outside the grave. There it is. It's carved in the rocks. The Romans have put a big stone across it. And then they use the governor's seal to make sure nobody tampers with it. And of course they put a Roman guard around it. Nobody is going to steal that body. They think they've got it done. And we're standing outside the grave, and we see all this. And what are we thinking? You know, he knew death was coming. He knew it. And he kept walking towards it. Remember, he had joy. Okay. He was walking towards it. He was always moving towards it with an intention. What was the intention? He was going to grapple with sin. Love was going to grapple with sin. And it was going to be a death struggle in the dark. And one had to win and the other had to be absolutely conquered. One way or the other. Love or sin. And so, here we are. The perfect man is in the grave. And we have questions. He's in the grave. He traveled the pathway to give his life, and he said, I lay it down, and I have authority to take it, see. What was his intention in that? To lay it down, and then to take it again. His intention was to have something now to communicate to others. To impart his life, his resurrection life. You see, he couldn't impart to us his human pre-resurrection life. He had to go through death and conquer death so that now he would have something to give. And that was his intention. And so love grappled with sin in the darkness. And we're standing at the grave. He's in there. The body's in there. He's dead. What happened? It was done where nobody could see it. He's dead. His body is in there. Who's won? Now, we know how the story ends, but that doesn't change things we still don't know. There's a question here. He said two things would happen. We would be loosed from sin. And secondly, we would overcome that which has overcome us. So the question is, who won in the darkness? Have we been loosed from sin? Can I overcome? He promised. He promised. So the two things are this. He said he would give us pardon and he would give us power. And that's why we're standing outside the grave. We want to know what happened. Are we going to get any of this or not? And you know, everybody knows that as long as he's in that grave, we don't get anything. Yeah. That's why we're standing there at the grave. And you know, the apostles, they knew he was dead. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because it seems to fit right here. Were they expecting him to be resurrected? We need to remember that at this point in history, that was the farthest thing from their mind that they were ever going to see him again. He was dead. You remind people when they say they got together that Sunday for the first church service. There is no way those people thought they were having a church service in Christianity that first Sunday. You need to tell people things like that because they never thought about them. And they will never think about it unless somebody says it. These young fellows that I told you that are coming, I said that to them and they just about fell down. They never thought about it. Yeah. And they knew something terribly wrong here because our teachers told us differently. But it can't be. They saw it in their mind. Do you know they're coming 3 times a week now? Can you believe that? They're coming 3 times a week. And they came last Sunday. They don't do things like that on Sunday. Keep praying. Keep praying. Something is going on there I have never seen before. They brought a new one yesterday. And they said, he wants to know about Daniel. I have to be careful. If I get more than 3 of them in that house, I'll have the whole church over there saying, what are you doing? No. Okay. So, here are the apostles. The grave, they know he's dead. He's in there. The body's in there. It's got the seal on there. He made promises, but he's dead. Well, the love hasn't changed. They love him. They love Jesus. And they're thinking about all of this. You know, even if he failed, he meant well. He meant well. And what a life he lived. Oh, that will never happen again on earth, that kind of a life. He's in the grave. Well, we won't stay with that any further. We need to get someplace else today. If you listen real hard, you're going to hear something. Matthew 28. In the tender light of the 3rd day. See? In the tender light of that 3rd day, we're going to hear something. Early in the morning, there's music in the air. Yeah, music. Chapter 28, verse 6. He's not here. Do you hear it? Early that morning, from heaven, an angel. The people have come. What did they come for? They came to do his body with spices. They came to do that dead body. And in this tender light, the voice comes and says, well, he's not here. He is not here, for he is risen. And they're looking at an empty tomb. He is not here, he's risen. Come. See the place where the Lord lay. Well, that's just part of what they were told. We'll do the other words in just a minute. It was an exultant joy. All heaven is in joy. The angels passing it on. They're getting it. But then the angel, according to the gospel, said one more thing. He is risen. He's not here, as he said. What's that mean? As he said. What did heaven just say to these people who came here to take care of that dead body? Why didn't you believe him? It's a gentle rebuke. He's not here. He's risen. Like he said. Oh, that's tremendous. How many times has God told us something, and finally, when something happens that we appreciate and say, oh, what a blessing. I think that angel might be behind us saying, well, like he said. Oh, why does it take me so long? Behold, the grave is empty. All the questions are answered now. We're going to ask some in just a second here. All the questions are answered in a valiant, beautiful, radiant splendor. What happened in that death grapple in the darkness? He vanquished. He vanquished. There's the empty tomb. He's not in the grave anymore. He vanquished the grave. What did he vanquish? Something perished. He vanquished sin. Do we know that? Or do we still think sin is this fantastic power we can't get past? We can't avoid it. We have to do a little bit. He took care of it in the darkness. Men, the devil, sin did everything that could be done to get rid of love, and love said, that's the end of you. When are we going to start believing it? You know, these are not games. This is not going to a movie. This is not doing puzzles. This is God telling us what Jesus did. And we had no part in it. He did it. The mighty work that he set out to do, he has done. That's what the resurrection is saying. Death could not Behold him, because he conquered sin. He retained his authority. Death could not make his authority stop. He had the authority, even when he was dead, to take his life again. Now that's authority. And he proved he had it by coming back. What did he take back again? The virtue of his perfect life, so that he could communicate it to others. He could impart that perfect life to us. Now, I did not say impute. Everybody believes that. At least I say they believe it. No, he did this so he could impart that life to us. By right, he earned it. And so the empty grave is there, and he knew it was going to be empty. He knew it was going to be empty. What did he say before he put down his life? It is finished. That's not. That must have made the devil shake in his boots when he heard those words. Oh, it's finished. I'm finished. And we didn't hear it, but the Father said it too. It is finished. There's the Father's answer. It is finished. Oh, this thing about sin. We've put up with this for 4,000 years. You know, I'm not making this stuff up. This is exactly what it says in Revelation, the 12th chapter. All right. It is finished. It's accomplished. Sin has been dealt with. Jesus killed it. He ruined it forever. And nobody can ever take it back. See? That's what the devil's trying to convince us of. That God can't ever get rid of it. Do you know all the churches that believe in an everlasting burning hell? That's the reason they believe in it. They believe Jesus cannot get rid of sin, so he's got to have a place for people to burn forever. That's the devil's lie. That's what he said in Genesis, the 3rd chapter. Thou shalt surely not die. You're going to burn forever. Isn't it amazing? He's got the Christian churches teaching his lie. And they think they got it from God. I think we need to start talking to some people. They're never going to know about this listening to their pastors. Never. It's not going to happen. The promise that he has life to give, and now it's at our disposal. Spirit Prophecy says a very interesting thing about that. She says, all heaven is at our command. When's the last time you used that one in your life? All heaven is at my command in the name of Jesus. Christ Object Lessons 147. Talk and act as though your faith were invincible. That's what God says to us. Don't just talk it, act like it, live like it. Your faith is invincible because it's the faith of Jesus. The commandments of God and the faith of Jesus? I mean, are we getting that? Well, that's all in good for the people who have faith. We believe all these things by faith. But now I'm going to throw the monkey wrench into it. Does God want us to accept all this, only because we have faith? No. Or does He expect us to understand this is not just faith, this is a fact? See? There's a difference between believing in something and knowing it's a fact. And I'm going to start talking to you about the difference between starting out as a Christian and then blowing it later. And believing Christianity is a fact and holding on to it forever. Okay? Let's try a little bit here. It is totally illogical to retain an idea or a faith if it really isn't a fact. You don't have anything if you believe in something that isn't really there. There is no permanent value in anything that is not a fact. You can believe in fairy tales all you want, but it doesn't take you anyplace. I'm going to talk to these boys about that. You can believe in fairy tales if you want, but you must have something that is actual, that is a fact, if you're going to have something that's going to hold. Now, there are people, of course, especially theologians, that say, well, you really don't need to be concerned about the fact as long as you get some sort of a value out of it. Your faith is enough. Don't worry about it. If it's real or not, look at what it does for you. Well, that's ridiculous. Faith in something that's not a fact doesn't do anything for you. You're just kidding yourself. Yeah. It's a big game. We read some time back that faith in an error is exactly the same operation of the mind as faith in the truth. The mind is getting the same thing, whether it's error or truth. So it makes a great deal of difference whether you believe in the truth or not. So it's not true. Just have faith, you're getting something out of it. Whether it's true or not, you're going to be a better person. Oh, come on. You know what happens to people who just have faith in something that's not real? That's not a real fact. They go back to what they were before they believed. If you don't know the cross is a fact, you're going to be in big trouble. I can guarantee it. If you just think it's in the Bible, And this is what my church teaches, and this is what I believe, and whether it really happened or not, well, come on now. You cannot hold on to Christianity that's based on just what you think. It's not going to work. The person who does that returns to materialism. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I won't get into that too far. That's what the Greeks did, you know. That's what the Romans did. That's what every so-called civilized people did. They eventually all got back there again because the things they believed didn't go anywhere. It helped them develop a culture for a while, but then they lost it. They became horrible people. They got to where the United States is getting right now. Did he rise? Did he rise? Now, I don't want to know about your faith. Let's look at it. Did he rise? Well, now, he said he would. Now, I'm sure you've talked to people that said, well, he was a good man.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Oh, really? Do good men lie? He said he would rise. Now, if his claim is false and he did not rise, then every other claim he ever made is also false. So there's none of this good man stuff. He either was what he said and he did what he said, or he was a big fake.
Right.
There's no two ways about this. All right, thank you. Let's look at John, the 2nd chapter. Okay, good. 2:18. Then answered the Jews and said unto him, what sign? They were always doing that. What sign? Be careful if you talk to Jesus that way. Yeah, be careful. What sign showest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest these things? Jesus answered, and he said unto them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. What was the sign he gave them? He went to the top place. He didn't say the cross. Yeah. He said, here's your sign. I can't go any higher with you. You can't take anything higher. The resurrection. 3 days. Oh, that's powerful, powerful. Matthew 12. Verse 38, then certain of the scribes and of the Pharisees answered, saying, Master, we would see a sign. Verse 40, for as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. There it goes again. 3 days, 3 nights, and then destroy this temple. 3 days. Now this is Jesus talking. This is not Paul. Paul says the same thing, of course. But here's the authority of Jesus himself. This is the indisputable seal of his divinity. No one can argue with the power to raise life again. So, if he didn't rise, we're either looking at a really deceived person or a deceiver. That's not much of a choice, is it? He's either mistaken or he never intended to rise. So if he didn't rise, those are the only 2 choices. He was either a crazy nut deceived, or he was trying to fool everybody. He had to rise. Now, if he didn't rise, this would have been his final failure. His own church rejected him. Okay? The church of God rejected Jesus. His apostles went running off in all directions. Peter denied him. So did they. Yeah, we don't tell that part of the story. They denied him worse than Peter, you know that? Because Peter, after he denied him, was still there watching Jesus come down those steps, that ramp. The other ones were not there. They denied him and never came back. So don't be too rough on Peter. And of course John was there, but I think he was there because of Jesus' mother. But they were both there. The rest of them were gone. Now, we made a statement before I'm going to hold to, that the closer Jesus got to the cross, the crowds kept thinning out until there was nobody left except him. I'm going to tell the boys that too. The crowds thin out when you get closer to the cross of Jesus, the truth. So what did they do? Did they say, oh, look at all these wonderful words he said. Oh, look at this wonderful gospel he gave us. Look at this wonderful truth. Let's wait to see what happens. No, they didn't say that. They ran, and what did they say? Where do we leave our boats? Yeah, let's go fishing. Let's go back to what we were doing now. The exquisite beauty that was theirs for 3 years melted away. Gone. Gone. So then, if he didn't rise, what about the victories through all the centuries of Christianity? Oh, these men must have gotten together afterwards, and they thought it over and said, well, we can't waste all that information. Let's make a church. And so they invented Christianity. These scattered people. These men, out of that failure, turned this myth of Jesus into the most spectacular power this earth has ever known. All by themselves. What brought them back together anyhow? It wasn't the cross. Over there in Luke 24, didn't it say, oh, we had hoped it was him. They're not saying let's build a church. We're saying he failed. We had hoped it would have been him. He was mistaken. Back to the boats. Oh, I don't know where theologians get their thinking from. I wonder what in the world's wrong with those people. And of course, Paul already told us, if he has not risen, then nobody else is going to. That's pretty bad news.
Yep.
You know, people say, oh, he was a good man, and people say, oh, he was a perfect man, but he wasn't God. I mean, that's what the Muslims say. He was not God. He was a good man. He was even a prophet. But he said a better prophet was coming, Muhammad. I don't know what book they're reading. It doesn't say it in the Bible. But, you know, people pay Jesus all kinds of backhanded compliments. Oh, what a wonderful thing he taught. Oh, what a wonderful life he lived. Oh, he was a perfect man. Oh, a perfect man. He was so perfect, he foisted all of his bad information on ignorant men everywhere. He took advantage of them. A perfect man doesn't do that. If he isn't risen, then there's no new power. No new power. And you can't look at the history of this world and say, that power we see in the world isn't there. You can't do that. No one can do it. Not even the worst skeptics. They have to admit people's lives change. So what brought those frightened men back together and turned them into this vital force? Frightened men. Doesn't it say that? The resurrection day, they were assembled for fear of the Jews. They were shaking in their boots. They said, they're going to kill us next. These frightened men, what turned them into this power in the world? Oh, it's sheer history. Sheer history. They went throughout Jerusalem and turned that place upside down. And then they kept moving. The known world. And it shook the Romans up because they went everywhere in the Roman Empire in one generation. 12 men in one generation. How many people do we have? That's good. You looked in this room. That's enough right here. Yeah. We've got 25 million do-nothings. I'm sorry, I have to say it. Do you know how I know that? Because Jesus said when He comes back, He's going to give His reward. And then Revelation 22, I give my reward to every man as his work shall be. It didn't say what he believes and what he sits in the church doing. What his work shall be. And then He says, come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom. Now, what else is He going to say? What else is He going to say? Well done. Now, how in the world is He going to say, well done, if we didn't do anything? 25 million people, and they're all expecting Jesus to say, well done, when they haven't done one thing. Do nothings. You know what they're thinking? I heard a pastor say it recently. By the quiet testimony of a well-lived life, they're going to win souls. Yeah, sitting in front of your television, son? Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Your life is so quiet, I'm telling people. Nobody can hear it. Nobody can see it. Nobody knows. That's pretty quiet. I said that to that pastor. I said, Pastor, you better start thinking and praying because you got this thing all wrong. Jesus wants to say, well done. And He's going to say it to the people who are going to go to the kingdom. Yeah. He's going to say it to every one of them. That was extra. That's not part of the resurrection. So, if Jesus is not risen, He was a fraud. That's simple. He was a fraud. And so were they. And so is the Christian religion. The whole thing is no good. It all hinges on the resurrection. Now these men, they were all excommunicated, you know. Yeah. They were no longer church members with the Jews. That's it. You get out of here. You're heretics. You're excommunicated. So these men, these scattered people who got back together to say, let's build a church, first price they paid was excommunication. Then they were persecuted. And we're not talking little persecution. They all died violent deaths except for John. They suffered. And then through the years, more and more people became Christians. And they suffered. They were persecuted. They died. All for a story they invented. No. I don't know how anybody can believe that one. I don't care how agnostic, how atheistic, who can believe something like that once you see what it means? There are a few other little details. We're not going to carry this too much further. You know, the Scripture says Jesus' bones weren't broken. Why not? He was already dead. They only broke the bones of people who weren't dead yet. They didn't break his bones. So he was dead. Now the reason I say that is because there's another little story floating around by skeptics that Jesus really didn't die. They say he looked dead. They took him down. They buried him. But then he got up again. No. They knew he was dead. They put a spear in him. He was dead. So then let's start wrapping this up. The really hardcore ones have one waiting for everybody. They say, well, you know, that was such a stressful situation that later on, after he was dead, and they had expected him not to do that, that they started having hallucinations. They had visions of seeing Jesus walking around. They thought they heard him talking. And they were just beside themselves. And you know, you have to be really stretching to go up that far. You really have to be stretching. How many of the people that had these hallucinations were expecting Jesus to be resurrected? None of them. How could they be having hallucinations about something they wanted and they expected if they never even had the thought? They never thought about Jesus coming back. They didn't believe him. They didn't believe him. I have often wondered about that. I can't find anybody that believed him when he said he was going to come back to life. Among the disciples, his followers. And I wonder, why didn't somebody believe him? And I'm finally coming to the place, not only did they not want to know, we know that part of it. They didn't want to know that. But I think possibly it was in God's plan that he wouldn't break through so that they would be another proof Jesus has risen. They didn't expect that. It's not what they thought was going to happen. It was a great disappointment. Did you catch that? Out of this great disappointment, God built his church. In 1844, out of that great disappointment, he started his last movement, the same thing. That's how God works. He doesn't want it to be logical. He doesn't want it to make sense. He wants everybody to know, God did this. We didn't do it. The women saw Jesus. Okay, hallucinations. Peter saw Jesus. He had a vision. The men on the way to Emmaus, maybe hallucinations and visions. 10 apostles saw him. Then later on, 11 apostles. Saul of Tarsus saw him. 7 on the seashore. Then a group of them at the Ascension. But the one that gets to me is 500 people saw him all at the same time. Yeah, Paul tells us that.
All those that were to the city, talking to people.
500 people. That's a pretty good hallucination. No. It doesn't matter what anybody says about he was not risen. There's no way you can turn that into a fact. You can't do it. It is a fact. He is risen, and that's beyond faith. We should have faith in it, yes. But we should know, this is not me just wanting to believe something. This is a historical reality. You know, talking about Saul, I should mention this one because you might enjoy this one. They say that Saul, there was a big thunderstorm. That's what the brightness was. That big thunderstorm, big flash of lightning and all this. And he had an epileptic fit. And that was the conversion of Saul. Yeah, can you believe? You can find that in books. A thunderstorm and an epileptic fit. And you know what? G. Campbell Morgan makes a nice comment about this. He says, "Oh, Lord, give us some more thunderstorms and more epileptic fits." Yeah, he saw how ridiculous all this stuff is. But we haven't talked about the big one yet. The church. The church. Now, I'm not talking about the Seventh-day Adventist church. I'm talking about God's church. His people. All the way through, the real one. The new society, the believers, they all have something. His Spirit. Okay? That's the true church. His Spirit. Regeneration. The gospel of grace. That cannot be denied. The real church of God. The fact becomes a living experience day by day. That's the note I have. That's right. That's right. Christ in us, the hope of glory. Colossians 1:27. And please don't change that scripture to say something else. It says Christ in us. Leave it there. I hate it when somebody tells me, no, it's not Jesus, He's in heaven. Don't tell me that. My Bible says Jesus, Christ in me. That's what I want. It's just the way He said it. And for the true church, the real people of God with Christ in them, the resurrection is their battle song. It's a fact. Forget skeptics. It's a fact. And the dust of the holy ones laying in their graves has a light on it. That dust has a radiant light, a beautiful light upon their graves. Yeah. 1 Thessalonians 4. Verse 13, brethren, I would not have you be ignorant concerning them which are asleep. Verse 14. If we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so, them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with Him. Now, please don't fall into the trap that the churches have. They say Jesus is going to bring their souls from heaven to get a body. That is not what that verse says. It says, them which sleep, Jesus is going to bring with him back to the Father. You've got to read the Bible the way it reads, not the way we've been told. It's too easy to pick up wrong biases. Hear things wrong. But once you know the truth in one place, it's going to be true everywhere. All right. Any one of these subjects we're dealing with, we could spend months and months and years talking about. There's just so much. We need to get to these things based on our own study. Don't wait for somebody to tell you. Go dig things out. Go find things. If you dig up one good reference, it will lead you to another one, and from there to another one, and then you'll see things you weren't looking for, and then you go from there, and you will never stop. It just keeps you going. All right, next time we will begin the ascension. We'll go through about 4 or 5 things on the ascension to see what that means when Jesus went back. What was being accomplished there? Let's see. Did I get another note here? Somebody send me something else? Oh, here. Oh, no, I already had that one. Okay, I guess not. Okay. All right, let's have prayer. Father, you have called us. We don't know why the call meant something to us, but we have responded to you, and we are responding to you. We want to know more. We want to have more of Jesus. Jesus said, salvation is to know you. Help us, Lord, to have that experience, not merely as an intellectual idea, as an exercise of our brain, but to actually make the connection, a genuine connection, tissue to tissue, membrane to membrane, soul to soul connected with God. Help us, Lord, to understand that more and to experience it. And then, as we sense the certainty of it, bring someone that we can talk to, even if we have to go marching 100 miles to find them. May we give them the good news that they too may have forgiveness, total, complete, and life eternal in Jesus. We thank you in His holy name. Amen.